Wünsch, TLO. How do you like this event so far, the Homestory Cup here in Krefeld and the Königsburg?
I always love Homestory Cup. It's a little bit more of an intimate event than the other big events, which are a little bit more official. Here you get to meet fans, and it's a little bit everybody's just hanging out, and it's a little bit more of a fun event, not as serious as others. So it's a nice way to relax at a tournament for once.
Okay, so you've joined the Homestory Cup a few years ago. You've been here since I don't know what. So you already were there when it took place in the apartment,
yeah.
Yes? And do you think it lost something of the atmosphere or anything? Or since it's the first time that it happens here in Krefeld in the Königsburg, do you think it's still the same event and do you enjoy it as much as before?
I think it's a little bit different, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. It still feels intimate, even though it's on a bigger scale. And it doesn't feel quite as crowded. So the past few Homestory Cups had so many people that the apartment felt a little bit too small, and it was getting really hot and there was no space. So this is cool, and we know this is just the anniversary event. So after that it's gonna become a little bit more of a Homestory Cup again after that.
Okay, so speaking of the beginnings, how did you get involved into eSports? How old were you? Was it a hobby, or do you've been like, I'm going to be a pro gamer forever?
Well, basically I was playing video games all my life. I think I started playing games when I was 3 years old, and I have 3 older brothers. So from the very start I was a very competitive person, because we started playing video games against each other when I was a very small child. And from there on, in 2002 I went to the Games Convention in Leipzig, which was one of the really big gaming events back then. And then I completely fell in love with eSport, because I realized what I'm doing at home, there's people out there who want to watch it, and there's fans, and there's pro gamers who make it their profession. So ever since I was 12, I basically wanted to become a pro gamer, but I didn't really set it as my ultimate goal. I always kept my options open, but then when it worked out, I was just really happy that I could actually do it.
Okay, and what was it for your family? How did you came out to them like, okay, I'm going to be a professional gamer now, and that's the thing that I'm going to do for a couple of years or the rest of my life? How did they felt about that? Were they okay, or were they like, no, do something different for your education or anything?
Well, my parents were always supportive of it. They never wanted to stop me from, or like any of my brothers, stop us from doing what we really liked to do. And even though they didn't entirely understand gaming back then, they always knew it's something I'm really passionate about, so they always supported me. My mom was a little bit worried, because when I became a pro gamer, shortly after that I went to move to Korea, and it was a pretty shocking for me to move out and not move to another city in Germany, but moving to Korea. But they have been supporting me ever since, and I think that's really important, that people support you of your friends and family, and they don't disrespect you for choosing a different path than normal people.
Yeah, of course. So you make a living out of esports. Can you imagine yourself making a living out of esports as a professional gamer or anything else in 10 or 20 years from now? What do you think will you do?
It's very hard to predict what I will be doing in 10 years, especially with eSport. It's a very fast-growing, very fast business. A lot of factors change all the time. But I want to be a pro gamer as long as it's feasible for me. But at the same time, I'm not too worried about my future, because I have a really good relationship to a lot of companies in eSport, and because I was a pro gamer, I got to know a lot of people from different fields. And I'm always trying to, build my network a little bit and branch out a little bit, try to improve my, casting or commentary, or learn a little bit about coaching or management. So I think as long as you don't only play the game, but keep the options that are around you open and try to learn from that, it's really no problem. And eSport is a, great field to stay in. It would be a waste for me to just throw all of that out.
Okay, so it's all about making contacts and building a network that afterwards may be helpful for yourself to stay in esports and work there as something different and make a living out of that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's important, because you don't know if you're going to be one of the best players 5 years from now. It's always hard to predict what is going to happen. So you shouldn't focus too hard on just building your network and brand, because then you're not going to be as good as a player, but you should always keep it in mind to just build your network around you.
Okay, so it sounds like you're mixing up your hobby into work and business, and then create your own job from it.
Yeah, I guess it's a little bit like creating your own job. Everybody is doing it a little bit differently, so which is cool because it's new territory. Nobody really knows the perfect way yet, but I think if you keep an open mind, it's good.
Okay, speaking of hobbies, do you have any other different hobbies than you told us that you were into esports since you've been a small boy, and then afterwards it became your job. You are a professional gamer now. And what do you do when you are not like, I don't want to play a game or something? Do you go to the movies, or do you even have time for doing anything besides gaming?
It's really important to actually do other things than just gaming. In the past, I always felt bad when I did something else than training, but you're going to burn out and you're not going to be able to play as well. So nowadays, I'm doing quite a lot of sport. I love swimming. I'm gonna do Tough Mudder next year in Berlin. Just mix it up a little bit, do other things. And luckily, I'm living together with my best friend who's studying, so I get a little bit of university life as well. Because it's important to have a few friends outside of esports to get a new perspective and not just be, if you're not playing as well, esports sometimes depresses you. So it's really important to know other people from other fields, to kind of lift you up again.
Okay, speaking of studying, do you think it would be a possibility for you to go to a university and study there something and just choose a completely different path than gaming or esports?
I could imagine myself studying again, but at the moment I'm really happy of what I'm doing. And to me it's really important that I have complete freedom and I can really make my own decisions. So when you go to university, you're more trapped in a schedule that other people decide for yourself. So right now I don't really want to do that, but maybe in a few years I'm going to feel differently.
Okay, so the time will only show that. Okay, what do you think about the publisher of a game, of an event? How really important is the publisher for a professional gamer to be successful? The support of it and how you rise with them?
It's really important actually. There's different approaches. So some publishers like to really have control of the esport of their game, which can be a good thing if they have a lot of good policies and if they are listening to the community and if they are listening to the people that are, that know esport. But it can be bad if there's a company that just wants to force their policies on people in esport, but don't know the esport scene as much. Because just because you make a game doesn't need to mean you know esport, right? And then there's other companies that just keep kind of stay out of esport and let the scene develop themselves. I'm not really sure what is better at the moment. I think for now it's probably better if the publisher supports the scene, because right now esports still needs the support from the publisher. But eventually it might be different, because the esport is eventually maybe gonna become bigger than the game itself, and then it's important that the publisher doesn't have too much control.
Okay, so that would be all of my questions. Do you have anything else that I didn't ask you, what you would like to tell us by now?
No, I think you did a good job.
Okay, so that's it. Woo!